Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make a grilled hamburger steak sandwich. So everything you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this, and from the pound of ground beef that's here, you really will have enough to make probably 4 sandwiches out of this. When I make up my patties, I'm going to literally make 3 of them because I like them on the thicker side. But if you did it a little thinner, you could do 4 of these, and then you just, add extra cheese and bread to what we're doing here to actually make this recipe. However, I'm basically going to show you how to fit a couple of these in a pan and make them because I only need 2 right now. And we're going to get started with this. So in a large bowl, we're going to add a pound of ground beef. And then to this, we are going to add 1/4 of a cup of Italian breadcrumbs. Then 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and then we got a mix here in this bowl. It's 1/2 teaspoon of steak seasoning, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to get this all in, and we're going to mix this into our ground beef. Now, we could do things like some people when they're making like a meatloaf, they add an egg to it to help pull it together. We're not really trying to do that. We want this to be on the drier side of a mix. If you put the egg in it, it's going to be a lot more wet. It's going to be a lot harder to deal with. And then when you grill the sandwich, it's going to actually become a wet mess. So we're leaving the egg out. But we're going to go ahead and push this all together with everything that's in here till we get it all completely combined and all the breadcrumbs have been absorbed into the ground beef and all your seasoning is pushed through, because you really need to push your hand into this to actually make everything mix, and just keep doing it until you don't see any residue in your bowl or anything like that. And then we're going to take the ground beef that's here and just shape it into squares, basically like what a slice of bread would be like, because you kind of need it to a square size, so that way it's going to cover from side to side and bottom to top of what we're using for our bread, because we're using Texas toast for this, and we kind of need it a little on the big side so that way it literally covers the whole thing. But you have a healthy sandwich out of this whole deal, and that's what we're trying to go for here. So go ahead and just shape these up. As I said, I'm only making 3 of these. You could probably have made 4, but it would have been a little thin on the ground beef side of it. So I don't know, I wanted mine a little on the thick side. If you wanted to do more, you could just add more to your recipe, like double what I'm making here, and you could have multiples of these. It's so easy to do. And then once you get all of these squares done, we're going to set them on a plate and set them to the side. Then we're going to take like a medium-sized onion and slice it through several times until we get multiple pieces of this. Now this depends on how much you like onions as to how many of these you cut. And then once you get them cut, you're going to break it up so that way all the rings are really loose and there's none of this still stuck together. We really want it to be where when it's cooking, the rings are actually getting everything cooked up, but they're going to go on a sandwich this way. So we want them to be split up. Then we're going to add a pan to the stove. We're going to put in it at least 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're going to add our onions to it. So we're on medium-high heat right now, and we're going to cook these onions, I would say anywhere from about like 3 to 4 minutes before we do anything else to it, because the onions are not going to be cooked in that time. But after we had these in here for about like 3 or 4 minutes, we're going to add in our steak and get it going that way. So your hamburger steaks will come in after these start to cook a little bit. So go ahead and move them through the oil and make sure that they're totally coated, and make sure your pan's hot so that way as you're doing this, it's going to start cooking these. So move them around as much as you can, get them coated in that oil. And as I said, after 3 to 4 minutes, they're going to start to cook. But that's not going to be the point we're taking them out of here. They're going to have plenty of time to cook after this. Once the hamburger steaks are added to this, then they're going to have at least another like 7 or so minutes to cook. And that way, they're going to be very well done. They're going to be translucent. They're going to start to get a little bit of that edge on it where they start to turn a little brown. And that's kind of what we want for the sandwich. So we're going to push those to the side of our pan, and then we're going to add in the hamburger steaks. Now, while the hamburger steaks are in here, we want to cook these for at least 4 minutes per side, unless you want these really done. See, it's going to be the degree of how done you like something like this to be. For the 4 minutes per side, we're going for about like medium done here is what I'm going for. So we're going to let these cook. After 4 minutes, we're going to flip them. At the same time though, we're going to move the onions around to make sure that they don't actually burn on the bottom. We want to make sure everything is getting moved around at the same time, and that we're kind of staying on top of all of it as we cook it. Now, once we get the hamburger steaks cooked the majority of the way through here, then we're going to remove the onions to a plate, because we want to actually bring them out before they get too cooked, and make sure that they can actually sit to the side until we're ready to assemble the sandwich. So make sure you're moving everything around in your pan. We don't want anything to set up shop or get a little too overdone. And then we're just going to go ahead and take these onions out. And we're going to continue to cook the hamburger steaks until they're browned and you don't see the pink on the outside that's here, which is going to take about another minute or two to do. So just go ahead and keep cooking them. Make sure that your onions are set in a safe place to the side. They don't really have to be in a place where they have to stay warm, because we're going to put them on the sandwich and grill it, and the grilling is going to reheat everything as it's being grilled. So go ahead and flip your hamburger steaks one more time, and we'll make sure that the bottom part of this is done. Now, once we get done with this and we remove the hamburger steaks from this pan, we're going to go ahead and clean it to reuse it. I spray a little nonstick cooking spray to the bottom of this, and then we're going to take this Texas toast that we're using, and you're going to butter it on both sides. So that way when you're flipping it in the pan, it's going to basically grill on both sides of the bread. So like I said, I'm making 2 sandwiches, so I'm doing 4 pieces of this to put in, and I'm going to put them in to the pan, which is already heating up, because I want the bottom of the bread to get a kind of a brownish color to it before I actually add anything to it. I want to sear it a little bit, get it a little cooked, and the butter is going to start doing that for me as the temperature comes up underneath. So just have your bread in there. Make sure that you move it around a little bit from time to time, because it can still stick to your pan, because butter helps things do that. So we're going to go ahead and keep moving this, moving it back and forth. And as you are watching it, you're going to notice that the butter on top of your bread is starting to change and melt. That means the bottom is actually starting to go brown, and that's what we want to see. Because what we want to do is brown the one side and flip it up, so that way it has like a crusty edge on it before we put the ingredients in here for the sandwich, and that's going to stop it from getting wet, mushy, and oozing through. So now that it's brown, we can go ahead and flip it and get ready to go to the next step of this. Now I am using some pieces of mozzarella cheese, which these are squares. You can buy them in most stores. You don't have to use mozzarella. You can use a different kind of cheese if you wanted to, but this was my choice because this has such a good taste with what I'm doing. And then I'm bringing over 2 hamburger steaks to lay onto the other 2 pieces of bread, so that way that's the next stage to it. And then we're going to put onions on top of it. But while we're doing this, we want the bread to keep browning underneath. And you want to see this mozzarella start to melt a little bit on it, because that's going to be a dead giveaway that it's time to flip it over on top of the stack. So go ahead and just check underneath of it to see how brown it is, and then if it's good enough for you, go ahead and flip it over, because we're going to flip these a couple of times just to have them sitting in the pan to brown up the top and bottom of the bread, so that way it gets that good grilled effect to it. And then once you've had them for about a minute or 2, flip them over, and they're going to look a lot like this. And this is what you want on both sides of your sandwich. So that way it's grilled, it's hearty, and it actually doesn't have a mushiness to it. This is not just like eating a sandwich. This has a crunchy edge, and it's such a great taste when you go to eat it. And we're just going to let this sit in here for a bit till the bottom does it, and when it's finished it will look like this. I served mine with some french fries, and it was so good to eat, and these have such a great taste. So if you're a fan of hamburgers, you'll love this. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, look at the books that are available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and even buy them at a discount with a shipping rate cheaper than Amazon. So check it out if you get a chance, and have a great day.